Total Sports Zone. All sports, all action, one zone.
Okay, just imagine this for a second. Your team wins almost 100 games over 9 seasons. You're always in the mix, always a contender. And then, boom, your head coach gets fired. I know, it sounds pretty wild, right? But a recent Sporting News article dug into this exact what-if scenario for the Buffalo Bills. So let's just dive right into this and see who could possibly step. So the whole idea here is pretty simple, but man, it's a shocker. In this hypothetical world, the Buffalo Bills have just fired head coach Sean McDermott. Now remember, this isn't some team that's falling apart. We're talking about a team that's been consistently one of the best in the entire league, which, leads to a very obvious question. Exactly. How on earth does a coach with a 98-50 regular season record just get shown the door? It doesn't really add up. 98 wins is a huge deal. But according to the writer of this piece, the answer isn't in the regular season stats. Nope, it's all about what happens in January. And there it is. 8 wins and 8 losses. A perfect .500 record. Dead average, right in the middle. For a team with serious Super Bowl dreams and a quarterback like Josh Allen, the article basically argues that's just not going to cut it. In this scenario, some frustrating overtime playoff loss was the final straw. So with the top job open, the real question becomes, who's next? So with McDermott hypothetically out, the search is on. Sporting News analyst Vinny Iyer went ahead and put together a ranked list of 6 guys who could take his place. And it's a really interesting list. You've got internal guys, you've got familiar faces, and some total outsiders. Let's break down his list, starting with the person he ranked number 1. So Iyer's top pick isn't some hotshot from another organization or a rival team. He thinks the Bills would look for their next leader right down their own hallway. And that leader, according to the list, would be Joe Brady, the team's current offensive coordinator. He's only 36 years old, so he would represent a really big shift, younger and focused on offense, which is the exact opposite of the defensive-minded McDermott. So why Joe Brady? Well, the article lays out a few key reasons. For one, he's already getting calls for head coaching interviews with other teams. He's known as a great play caller, and he's the guy who built this really dynamic, run-heavy offense they've got going. But really, the most important piece of the puzzle here, it's all about continuity for Josh Allen. You promote Brady, and your star quarterback doesn't have to start from scratch learning a whole new system. That's huge. All right, so let's move on to the next group of candidates. If the Bills decide not to promote from within, the analysts suggest they might look to a familiar face from the team's past. Or they could double down on a defensive identity, just with a new guy in charge. Coming in hot at number 2 is a name that every single Bills fan is going to know, Brian Daboll. Of course, he was Josh Allen's first big-time offensive coordinator in Buffalo before he left to become the head coach for the Giants. And this quote right here, it gets right to the heart of it. It's all about that relationship he already has with Josh Allen. The article notes that his time with the Giants was pretty up and down, but the idea is that bringing back the coach who first really unlocked Allen's massive potential could be the magic formula they need. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting, because we pivot completely to defense for candidates 3 and 4. At number 3, you've got Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. He knows the AFC East inside and out from his time with the Patriots. Then at number 4, you have Jeff Hafley, the Packers DC. He used to be a college head coach, and the article says he could bring a winning mindset to the building. You see the logic here, right? If your offense is already one of the best, maybe you hire a defensive guru to just shut down the other guys. The article specifically talks about youthful energy when it brings up Flores. And this chart kind of puts that into perspective. You've got Flores at 44 and Hafley at 46, and both are younger than the 51-year-old Sean McDermott. It suggests that maybe they'd be looking for a new generation of leadership on that side of the ball. All right, the last 2 candidates on this list, they represent a total break from what the Bills have been doing. We're talking offensive coordinators from completely outside the organization, brought in to give the team a totally fresh spark. So at number 5, we've got Mike LaFleur, the offensive coordinator for the LA Rams. He comes from that highly respected Sean McVay coaching tree, which has, produced a ton of successful head coaches. And his brother, Matt, is the head coach in Green Bay. So you got to think offensive genius just runs in the family. The whole case for a guy like LaFleur is all about that offensive innovation. The source suggests he could bring more potential playoff juice to the offense, basically something extra to help get Josh Allen over the hump in those huge postseason games. And that background, learning under McVay, that's a massive selling point. And rounding out the list, last but not least, at number 6 is Klint Kubiak. He's another one of these young, up-and-coming offensive minds, and he's currently the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. So Kubiak's stock is definitely on the rise. The article points to his success with Seattle's offense and calls him a hot enough candidate that multiple teams are probably looking at him. But here's the key. Here's the Bills' secret weapon. Having a superstar quarterback like Josh Allen. That gives them a huge advantage if they get into a bidding war for a top offensive coach like him. So after running through all 6 of these potential candidates, a pretty clear picture starts to form. This whole hypothetical coaching search. It wouldn't just be about finding a new person to wear the headset. It would be about choosing a brand new philosophy for the entire franchise. I mean, this scorecard really just lays it all out, doesn't it? You could go with the path of continuity with Brady or go back to that familiar relationship with Dable. You could totally double down on defense with either Flores or Halfley. Or you could just blow it all up and go for a fresh offensive spark from an innovator like LaFleur or a rising star like Kubiak. Each one is a totally different path with its own set of risks and rewards. And that really leaves us with the ultimate question. In a situation this big, with so much on the line for a team that's so close to a title, what's the right move? Do you stick with the people and the systems that got you this far and just hope for a different outcome? Or do you risk it all, take a huge leap of faith on a completely new vision, hoping that is the final piece of the Super Bowl puzzle? It's a tough one, and it's a fascinating thing to think about.